Hello there, welcome to Encore. On the show today, the author of Eat, Pray, Love is here with her newest book. Elizabeth Gilbert will be telling us why she's tackling the historical novel with the signature of all things. Also on the show for you, an equine circus extravaganza with Paris's Cirque Gruss. And fresh from the hands of thieves, check out the stolen art that's back in police hands and on display in Rome. We've got all that and something new from Kylie Minogue coming up. First though, let's meet today's guest. And here she is. Hello there, Elizabeth Gilbert.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on.
It's very nice to have you with us to talk about your new book. And thanks to you at home for tuning in to the show as well. Now, I think most of our viewers will probably know you best from Eat, Pray, Love. Sold 10 million copies, more than. Got turned into a film with Julia Roberts, who we all love, I think. But you are here to tell us about the new one, Signature of All Things. It's very different from Eat, Pray, Love, isn't it? Can you tell us what it's about?
It is and isn't. Yeah, it's a novel. I'm going back to my roots as a novelist. I got started as a fiction writer, and then I veered into memoir, which is, of course, how people know me. But I wanted to write the kind of book I love to read. And I love to read the big, juicy 19th century historical novels, romance, action on the high seas, books of ideas. So I thought I would just try to give my readers something that I would have liked to have received as a reader. So the book is called The Signature of All Things, and it's about a 19th century female botanist and her adventures around the world.
Excellent. And could you read us perhaps a little excerpt?
Sure.
We've picked out a section that shows the real broad historical sweep of this novel and all the different things that are happening at the time.
Sure. Alma sailed for Tahiti on the 13th day of November, 1851. The Crystal Palace had just been erected in London for the Great Exhibition. Foucault's pendulum was newly installed at the Paris Observatory. The first white man had recently glimpsed Yosemite Valley. A submarine telegraphed cable was spooling across the Atlantic Ocean. John James Audubon was dead of old age. Richard Owen had won the Copley Medal for his work on paleontology. The Female Medical College of Pennsylvania was about to graduate its first class of 8 women doctors, and Alma Whitaker, aged 51 years, was a paying passenger on a whaling ship headed for the South Seas.
It just really paints so many pictures for me when you read that.
Oh, thank you.
Did you have to do, you must have had to do a lot of research.
I did, but I'm such a geek. I like that.
Sitting in a library with
Oh, I love it. And then, of course, I went back and I read all my Austen and my Eliot and my Dickens to sort of fall into the voice of the times. And I also read great numbers of letters from the 19th century in order to try to approximate the voices and the speaking habits of people from that time.
Because that's definitely the kind of thing that people pick up on. I know Downton Abbey's had problems with that.
Yeah,
people
you gotta get it right.
In. We'd never have said this.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned Jane Austen novels there. Many of our viewers will be familiar with the lives of the women of this age from Jane Austen. Often they're all about finding a good husband, a good bet for the future. Alma, your protagonist, she doesn't really seem to be that interested in that kind of thing. She's off sailing the high seas, like you say. Were you setting out to create sort of a proto-feminist?
Kind of, you know, and I based her on some real women of that time who were pretty extraordinary scientists, especially in the field of botany, which seemed to be the only science that women were welcomed into because flowers, you know, it's sort of like they had it's the garden basically. And then they sort of snuck into botany through the garden gate and made huge contributions. There is romance and love in Alma's life and disappointment, but what I really wanted to try to do was to write a novel about a woman whose life was neither rescued nor ruined by a man, because I feel like for far too much of literary history, those are the only 2 choices women have ever had in novels. And I feel like there's more interesting lives than that to be had.
I would certainly hope so. So speak about your own life briefly. You've drawn on your own life experiences so much, obviously directly in Eat, Pray, Love, which is a memoir. You know, is Alma a version of you as well, or someone you'd like to be?
She is indeed. I mean, every novel is a self-portrait in a way, and there's ways in which you'll probably learn more about me by reading this book than you would from Eat, Pray, Love, because I kind of accidentally reveal a great deal about myself. What I share with Alma is a passion for work. That's another thing that I felt like we don't really see enough in novels about women. Alma, the thread that sort of holds her whole life together is her love and devotion to the natural world and to science and to exploration. And while I'm not a scientist, I certainly understand what it feels like to devote your life to a pursuit, in my case, writing, that gives your life meaning.
And you also know what it's like to see your work turned into a movie as well. How did it feel seeing your book of Eat, Pray, Love up on the big screen?
It's not bad to see Julia Roberts portraying you.
That's a nice choice.
It's also, kind of nice to see yourself kissing Javier Bardem. That's a thing that's not not a struggle to watch. No, it's beautiful. I still haven't quite absorbed the impact that Eat, Pray, Love had on people. I never saw that coming, but it's been really beautiful and moving for me to see how that book has allowed women to ask themselves questions about their own lives that I think sometimes they feel they don't have permission to ask.
It's certainly been a very popular one. Now, we also want to mention that you've also published a book of recipes based on your own grandmother's recipes called Home on the Range.
Yeah.
So plenty of other things. Just really briefly, what's your next project?
I want to write a novel about New York in the 1940s and girls in the theatre world. After having written a book about corseted 19th century women, I kind of want to write about girls going a bit wild. And
Having a bit more fun.
I think the 1940s in New York is the time for that.
Excellent. Well, we'll look forward to that. Just a reminder
Thank you.
for our viewers, the signature of all things, it's obviously out in English and it's now published in French by Édition Calman-Lévy. Okay, well, Elizabeth, we're going to go from one pioneering lady of the past to a very pioneering lady and courageous one in the present day. I hope you like this. Maud Gruss is a horsewoman who's the great-great-granddaughter of the founders of the Gruss Circus. Their latest equine show here in Paris sees her taking 17 horses by the reins and leading them round the ring.
As the daughter of a family that's been in the circus for 5 generations, it's natural that Maud Gruss got an early start. She's been training horses since she was 4 years old. Now she watches over a stable of 50 animals.
Something really happens between us when we work together. We understand each other perfectly.
And with the dangerous stunts they perform, there has to be absolute trust between trainer and horse. Five generations and the circus is still a family affair. Maud performs with her parents, brothers, sisters-in-law, nephews and husband. Circus Gruss's show Sylvia is firmly within the traditional equestrian arts. But now Maud has taken it to a new level in an act she spent 3 years developing and rehearsing. Standing on 2 stallions as they canter around the ring, she guides her team of horses one by one. By the end, she has 17 horses by the reins, as her father Alexei keeps a watchful eye.
Bit by bit, as the horses enter the ring, they get faster and faster. We like it like that. We don't like cushy work.
As proof, look up. Maud is also the successor to her mother's high wire act. She's as comfortable 6 meters overhead as on the back of a horse.
There we go. Brave stuff indeed. Elizabeth, our next item takes us to Italy. And I know that you obviously spent a lovely chunk of your life there, as we read about in Eat, Pray, Love, didn't we? Well, while we're thinking about Rome, obviously we think about art. And we're going to take a look at an Italian art exhibition with a difference. All the paintings and priceless artefacts in this one have all been stolen at some point. They were recovered by Italy's Special Art Police Squad, and the impressive haul is now on display at Rome's Quirinale Palace. Julia Seeger has the story.
A trove of recovered stolen art. The collection of artifacts includes oil paintings, gilt altarpieces, and ancient vases. But the most spectacular finding is a series of Etruscan marble funerary urns dating back to the 3rd century BC. These pieces were either stolen from churches and museums or illegally sold.
As of today, the public will be able to see what had been stolen from them.
Every piece has its own story. This sculpture of Roman Empire Tiberius was stolen in 1971 and found in London 40 years later, while this precious vase was snatched by thieves during an illegal excavation. It was seized as it was being handed over to a Japanese buyer by a Swiss intermediary. Also on display, the painting Leda and the Swan by Lelio Arzi. It caught the attention of the Italian police when it was sold for around $1.5 million at an auction house in 2008. The exhibition shines a light on the scale of illegal trade in art and ancient artifacts around the world.
The turnover generated by the illegal sale of art comes in fourth place on the global stage, after weapons, drugs, and financial services. Often, it comes back to international criminal organizations.
The show is a nod to Italy's Carabinieri Art Squad, a police unit specialized in art thefts.
The pieces of art you see here are the fruit of our labor over the past 2 to 3 years.
Today, the squad has the largest database of stolen works around the world, with 5.7 million objects recovered in the last 45 years. After the exhibition, the objects will be returned to their original owners, while those originating from illegal digs will be given to Italian museums.
And that exhibition runs until mid-March. Thanks once again to Elizabeth Gilbert for being with us here for the show.
You're welcome. It was my delight to be here.
It's
Thank you.
very nice to meet you and hear more about your book. Thanks, of course, to our viewers for tuning in. Remember, you can keep up with all of our news on our social networks and with me at A Cat in Paris. We're going to end the show with something new from Kylie Minogue. The Australian pop star's bringing out a new album in March, and she's just released the video for the first single, Into the Blue, which features French actor Clément Sibony. We'll leave you with that. See you soon.